Hey everybody, so today I wanted to share with you guys how I make my sugar cookies and also my cupcakes. This is a recipe that you guys have seen a lot here on YouTube with my birthday party videos. I've also shared a lot on my Instagram, especially like present day stuff. It took me quite a while to figure out the recipes that I really enjoy for both the sugar cookies and also the cupcakes and the frosting. So I used to actually get cookies and cupcakes made for each one of my kiddos' birthdays, but whenever the pandemic hit, the bakeries were closed during our middle daughter's birthday. So I made them at home all by myself. That was the first time. And since then, I've had a lot of practice. I've kind of tweaked and perfected the recipes, and I've also been gifted a recipe for the cupcake icing, which has just been phenomenal. So I am just a regular average mom. I am not a great baker. I'm not a professional one. It's not my hobby or anything like that. This is literally me just sharing with you how I make these cookies and cupcakes for birthdays, holidays. I do it for pretty much anything that my kiddos request it for. So I just wanted to share it with you guys. This is a little bit of a lengthy video, but I go over from start to finish the recipes for the sugar cookies, royal icing, and then cupcakes and the icing for those. So I walk you through every single step, trying to be as helpful as I possibly can, adding in every little detail that I've picked up along the way. That has just allowed me to be pretty efficient at this point, knowing what to do every single step of the way. So it is long. If you're looking for a shorter version, I have highlights over on my Instagram where I walked through. So if you don't want to watch a 30-minute video, I understand that, but there's a lot of people who saw that and wanted me to elaborate more on it. So I took you along for me prepping for my oldest daughter's birthday. So they're dino themed, but you can make these for literally anything. So I did a voiceover for all of the video. You're just going to see me as I'm working, and it's realistic. I don't have an HGTV kind of kitchen. I work in my living room. Only my family is eating these. Just please keep in mind that I'm not a professional. I'm not selling these. It's my family who's eating them. I am not here to say that I'm an expert or professional or that I'm the person who needs to give advice. I'm making this video because it was requested. So I know that I'm not the best. I know this might not be the way that you do it or your grandmama does it, but it's how I do it and how I'm sharing it because it was requested by my followers and my subscribers. So please keep that in mind. I just ask that you be kind. I know that they're not Instagram worthy or Pinterest worthy. I'm okay with that. My kiddos love the sugar cookies from the very first time I made them to what I can most currently do, and everything in between. They just love the effort, not necessarily the outcome. So I'm going to share that with you guys. Enough of an intro. Let's go ahead and get started and into this video. So first off, I wanted to show you the actual recipe itself, just in case you want to screenshot this and go off of it alone, not watch the rest of the video, whatever floats your boat. So the very first thing you're going to need is 1 cup or 2 sticks of room temperature butter, softened butter, whatever you want to say. I use salted butter always. And then you're also going to need 1 cup of granulated sugar, 1 teaspoon of almond extract, 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. If you don't like almond, if you're allergic, whatever, just double the vanilla. And also 1 large egg. Doesn't have to be room temp or anything. I literally pulled mine right out of the fridge. So just as long as it's 1 large egg. And you are also going to need 3 cups of all-purpose flour, and then also 2 teaspoons of baking powder, not soda, powder. I'm not sure if it matters, but that's what I've always used. And these are the cookie cutters that I'm using today. This was for my oldest daughter's birthday party, so that's why we have the ones that we have, but you can use any kind of cookie cutters you have, metal, plastic, holiday, birthday, doesn't matter. So this is the start of the actual recipe itself. I start off with creaming the butter and sugar together. Now, I had totally forgotten to set my butter out, so you're going to see the fact that some of it is melted, and I didn't know how this would affect the cookies. This is a pretty lawless sugar cookie recipe. There's not a bunch of rules to it. It's pretty simplistic. It's really forgiving, but I did not know how it would react with a little bit of melted butter. It was just fine. So you know, as long as it's softened, even if it's a little bit melted, it should treat you a-okay. And then after the 1 cup of butter, I'm adding in my 1 cup of granulated sugar and just going to go ahead and mix those together. Now, if you have a stand mixer, you can go ahead and use that. I, however, don't. I just use a hand mixer. So I'm just going to mix that together, and I'm going to speed this next part up so we don't have to stand here and watch me mix butter and sugar together. We all know what it looks like, but I'm just scraping down the sides, trying to mix it all together, making sure I'm getting the bottom so it's all incorporated really nicely. But you just want to go ahead and mix that together until you get the look of what I'm about to show you. It's just like this kind of sugary, creamy paste that you're looking for, and that's when I stop. So you can see right about here, that's what you're looking for. And then after you get done with that, you can go ahead and add in the extracts and the egg. So here I am just cracking the egg in, you know, riveting. I'm sure you've never seen this done before. So there's that. And then after the eggs, we have the extracts. Again, if you're allergic to almond or you don't prefer it, just put 2 teaspoons of vanilla. Also, ignore the fact that I'm appearing to put more in than usual. My measuring cups were dirty, so I'm just using what I have to make 1 teaspoon of each. You're going to notice that throughout the video. A lot of my stuff was dirty, so I was just compensating and putting the right amount in. So don't pay attention to that, pay attention to the recipe. But yes, in my personal opinion, if you're okay with almond, if you don't have any allergens to it, highly recommend it. It kind of takes these cookies to the next level, kind of sets it apart a little bit, and you're just mixing that in together. You don't want to overmix the egg or anything like that. We're not going for meringues here, but just so it's well incorporated, you don't have any gooey bits or anything like that, like the egg's not standing out in the mixture. And then after that, I go in with my baking powder is what I was trying to say, and I sprinkle it all over. So, you know, if you were really on top of it all, you could mix it together with the flour and then slowly mix both of those together into the dough. But I didn't want to dirty another thing. And again, it looks like I'm putting in a lot more than what the recipe calls for, but my utensils were just dirty. So I just sprinkle it all over the top. That way it is evenly distributed. And this is how I measure my flour. I don't know if it's correct. It's just the way I've always done it. So I just kind of let the flour fall into the cup, and then I level it off with the handy dandy thing at the top of my container. I do 1 cup at a time, and I do mix all 3 cups with my hand mixer. Again, just the same process. You're going to see me do this with the cookies, with the icing later, just making sure I'm scraping the sides, scraping the bottom, mixing it as well as I can. And then I'm going to go back in with another cup of flour, showing you again how I just push it all to one side, let it fall in, and then I level it off. Again, I don't know if this is correct. It's just how I do it and how I know these cookies come out well. So I'm just trying to share with you guys literally every little tip. That way, hopefully they work out well for you too. So I just sped this up so we don't have to sit here. It's going to look like this, a pebbly mess. And you're like, that is not cookie dough. Got to get in there with your hands. You'll see I'm not wearing any of my rings as I normally do. And that is because you got to work this dough with your hands. The warmth of them really just makes everything come together. And here I'm just slowly working it together, warming it up. And as I'm mixing it, I'm scraping the sides of the bowls. I'm picking up any of the drier bits that is at the bottom. You know, that's going to happen. So for a while, I'm just working inside the bowl, and eventually you can see me scraping the sides. I also end up picking it up and just kind of rotating it back and forth between my hands, just using all my body heat to mix it all together and get a really good looking cookie dough. And you don't want anything to be sticking to you. That's a good sign that it's not too wet. And the fact that it's not crumbling apart is a good sign that it's not too dry either. So then it's done. You don't have to chill this. You could freeze it. You can if you want to, but I don't. I go ahead and use it right off the bat. I keep a cup of flour over to the side for my countertops, my cookies, my rolling pin, all of it. I don't have it coated in everything. It's just to make sure that it doesn't stick. I do the same thing to my rolling pin, but that's a gesture I'm not comfortable making on YouTube. And then I'm going to pinch my dough in half and only work with half at a time. So I'm going to use 1/2, flatten it out, use that for the first batch of cookies, and then the other half will sit in the bowl until I'm ready, and we'll come back to that later. So I'm just going to go ahead and roll this out. This is a French rolling pin. Amazon has some really cool ones where they have things on the end to make sure that you only roll it out to be so thick. I have never done that. I don't use those kinds. You can see here, I pull up on the end right about here, I believe, and I just backtrack and I reflour my rolling pin. You know, mistakes are going to be made. I'm not an expert baker. I'm not a professional baker. I'm not even a great one is what I was trying to say. So I'm just doing my best here, and I roll this out. I've made these cookies anywhere from 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 of an inch thick. They're different. You're going to see later in the video, they're all different between those two sizes. Just as long as you're consistent and paying attention to how thick they are with baking time. That's really the only thing that matters. So I do put my cookie cutters in some flour, and then once I press them down, I shake them back and forth a little bit just to make sure that the edges are as clean as that they can be. And I'm a little bit more gentle with these thinner ones, like the 7 and the S. Those are kind of thinner cookies than this giant triceratops. But that's all I'm doing. I keep repeating this process over and over again, even with dough that I roll out and the clips coming forward. This is all I'm doing, just rolling it out, making sure I use every cookie cutter an even amount of times. If there's one thing that I would recommend you looking into buying, it would be the spatula from Amazon. I think it's around $8, stainless steel. It has a very sharp edge. So what I do is I take the outline of the cookies away first. Make sure you're not stacking them in like a whole mound of flour or anything. Just stack them right on top of each other. And I'm slowly peeling this away. I also fast forwarded this because it does take some time. I wanted to show clips that were both sped up, so we're not here for 3 hours, but also real-time clips because it can kind of get deceiving, especially with videos online. It can make it seem like it's not supposed to take that long, but cookies are a patient thing. So I love this spatula because it is so thin that it gets underneath the cookies without manipulating their actual shape. So I've used a lot of spatulas in the past before, and they would just manipulate the letters, the numbers, things like that that are a bit more fragile than bigger cutouts. And this thing has never let me down. I use it when pulling them up from here, and also after baking. It's just been a phenomenal little tool that has helped me so much. And I wanted to show you that sometimes the edges don't come out so clean. You can see there. I just take my finger and I press them back into the side. That's all I'm doing. I didn't get a great shot of me actually doing that, but you are able to kind of manipulate the dough a little bit. It's not super fragile. I mean, obviously support it, but you can see me doing that on some of these, and it's a lot better to do it before baking than after. It comes out a lot cleaner too. But if you can, I would recommend that. And I go ahead and I bake these at 350 for 5 to 7 minutes. It depends. If they're on the thinner side, go closer to 5 minutes. And if they're on the thicker side, go closer to 7. If you're not sure, set a timer for 5 and keep an eye on them for the next few minutes. You're going to see what they're going to look like. So with the scraps, that outline of those cookies, I just go ahead, I ball it up as best I can, warming it back up with my hand. I'm rubbing just enough flour to make sure that the surface is non-stick here. Nothing crazy. You don't want a ton of flour. I also refloured my rolling pin as well. You can see that at first it does want to crumble, but if you're just, rolling the dough out in a couple different ways, it'll start to warm up and pull into itself. So I'm just rolling out this, and I'm going to repeat the very same process. I love all these shoulder shots I got. You guys are welcome. I know that was crucial to this recipe video, so glad I could help. Anyways, I'm going to repeat the process with the cookie cutters. Nothing amazing here. I think we all know how to make cut out cookies. So that is all I'm doing. I just wanted to show me doing the process a couple of times. And sometimes if I have like an amount of dough I'm not sure how to fit, that's what I'll do. I'll put the cookie cutters there until I can find a good way to adjust them and then press them down once I'm happy. So I switch sides so you guys can see a little better. I'm taking that half I haven't used and I am putting the other half that I have been using into it. This helps make sure that your dough doesn't get overly dry. I've worked with all the dough at once for a lot of years and I could not figure out why it was drying out on me, and this has helped a lot. So I just fast forwarded through all these clips so you could see And I wanted to point out that once the cookies are done, I'm supporting all of the points of the cookie on my cooling rack. So you can see the points of the S, the tails on the triceratops, the points of the 7, they're all resting with support. And that's really important because sugar cookies are really fragile when they come out of the oven. You can leave them to cool on the cookie sheet for like a minute or two, nothing crazy, but this is what you should be left with. If you're not overcooking them, if you're keeping an eye on them, they'll be just like this nice golden color. Sometimes if I leave them in a minute too long, you might see a triceratops tail is a little bit more done than others. But this recipe is perfection. It's pretty simple, very beginner friendly. I also wanted to show you that cleanup is really easy too. You know, I just kind of scrape my counter with that spatula, throw away all that flour, you wipe it down, you're all good to go and ready to be cleaned up. So I also wanted to show how I use that spatula to get them off. You can see here, if I'm just trying to use the spatula itself, it's just more so running into the cookie and not helping me lift it off. So I use my hand to help too. And you can see here, I have different thickness in cookies. I'm not perfect. I've never claimed to be perfect with this video. This is just what I do. It works. As long as you're paying attention to baking time in relation to how thick or thin they are, it's going to be all right. So as you can see, I just use my hand to very gently lift the cookie as the spatula can get underneath and then help pull it up. So the spatula all by itself, it wants to kind of just like ram into the cookie. So we're done with these, and now we're going to move on to cupcakes because I'm taking you guys in order of how I actually make things. So next up is the cupcakes, and then after the cupcakes is the cookie icing, and then finally the cupcake icing. So let's go ahead and jump into how I make the cupcakes for my kids' parties because they're amazing. I'm a little biased, obviously, but they're delicious. So this is this giant pan I got from Walmart, and if I can link it, I will. So I use box cake mix, no shame. My daughter wanted chocolate cake, so that's what I do. But I replace the water with milk, equal parts. I add 1 extra egg, replace all the oil with a double amount of melted butter, salted as usual, and bake as directed. I will say if you're using almond milk, it will evaporate quicker because it has more of a water amount than traditional milk. So just be aware of that. It's nothing crazy. Just keep an eye on it. It might need like a minute or two less is what I'm saying. So I just go ahead and mix it up just like that, just as the paper says. And I didn't show the cupcakes done for some reason, so we're skipping straight into frosting these cookies. So here I use a cookie sheet with parchment paper underneath on top of a jelly roll pan that I got off of Amazon for my other baking. This is great. I would not recommend these bags. I'll link them in case you're desperate, but I've had many blow out on me, so I don't think they're the best. I use Wilton food coloring and also Wilton tips. I have some leftover wooden knives from a party that I use to mix up my food coloring and my icing that I'll walk you through as well. But I get most of my stuff from Walmart. And I also have these picks that I got off of Amazon that I will also link for you guys. That helps with the icing as well because we will be making royal icing. And again, just using my hand mixer. It comes with a whisk, which is really nice. I love using it for the icings. And this is the royal icing recipe I use. It's Sally's Baking Addiction, and I have never been let down by it. So you are going to need 4 cups of powdered or confectioner sugar, 9 to 10 tablespoons of room temperature water. I test this on my wrist just like I would like a baby's bottle. And then you are also going to need, I can't remember the number of tablespoons for the meringue powder. The recipe said it, and I will put it down below, but I can't remember off the top of my head. I also use a bowl that has a lid. So this is a Pampered Chef one my mom gave me for Christmas last year. Doesn't need to be this brand. I'm just saying use a bowl with a lid. That way, if you need to come back to it, it's not going to harden. If you need to make more, it's not going to harden. It's just really important that it's airtight, basically. And I also use plastic cups to help mix colors and also to bag my icing as well, which I'm going to show you guys right now. I'll also link you straight to Sally's royal icing recipe too. I've used a lot. This one has never let me down. So here I already have my 4 cups of powdered sugar, And now I am going to go ahead and add in the 3 tablespoons of meringue powder. I just remembered what it was. So yeah, 3 tablespoons. And then I go ahead and I whisk it together so the meringue powder is evenly in the powdered sugar. I don't know if this helps or not. It's just what I do. Again, I'm not sure of the science behind anything. I'm just literally telling you every single step that I take. And the reason why I like to put my water in a dish like this is it helps me kind of work on the fly. Sometimes I need a little bit more water. Sometimes I need less water. So having this dish just allows me to kind of take it in and not have to stop and try to get room temperature water. So here I'm just adding it in all over the powdered sugar. You're going to hear me say that. I call it powdered sugar. It's technically called confectioner sugar, but it's powdered sugar to me. Anyways, you can see here it's looking pretty soupy. Keep with it. You're going to notice that with both of the icings, they look really liquidy at first. Keep with it. So again, just scraping the sides, scraping the bottom. You're going to see me lift up and pour a bunch of icing everywhere, trying to test to see if it's thick enough. There we go. Wouldn't be me without making a mess. But I keep going until I get a consistency that I like. With royal icing, you can get this super thick if you want it. I look for this. You can see the pattern resting on the top of the icing, but in about a minute, it disappears. I would say that maybe that's medium consistency. I don't know. This is just, again, what I go with. It's a lot of eyeballing if you couldn't tell. So I use the cup in a way that I learned from Dunkin' Donuts when I used to work there back in the day. This is how we would fill our icing bags up. You just put the icing bag inside a cup, fold the bag over the edges is what I was saying, and then you just spoon in your icing. So I wanted white icing for one of the cookies, so that's why I'm not coloring it at all and just speeding that up because obviously it does take some time. And then you just lift it right out of the cup, and you want to make sure that you twist the bag shut just because it is royal icing. It's going to harden up. That's why I mentioned the bowl with the lid, which you will see me use here in just a moment after I fill these cups up, because royal icing will harden, and even if some of it underneath is still gooey, it just won't be the same. So that's why I like using an airtight bowl, so I can leave some in case I need more white or I need to just make a whole new batch or like whatever. I don't have to keep washing and rinsing and starting completely over. So it's really, really helpful to have some kind of airtight container. And this is me just mixing in the food coloring. I believe that there's rules with food coloring and royal icing. I don't know what they are. I've always used the Wilton gel food coloring that comes in these little jars. I get mine from Walmart. That's as helpful as I can be, and I'm sorry I don't know more. So yeah, I'm just mixing together the colors here, and then I'm pouring them into bags, just like I did with the white one. And with the food coloring, if I just have any advice, it's less is more, especially with yellow and orange. Those are my 2 least favorite colors to make because they can get out of hand so quickly. But the green and the pink came out really nicely. If they don't have the color you're looking for, you can mix it together normally by yourself. You can do it on a smaller batch. So those are the bags all tied up, and I also use plastic cups to hold them as I'm icing too. But that's everything for the royal icing, and now I'm going to show you guys on how I actually ice them. Keep in mind, again, I'm not a professional baker. I'm doing this out at a tiny table in my living room because we don't have a dining room table, and I like for my arms, my elbows more specifically, to be supported and to steady myself as I'm working. When it comes to icing the cookies, I try to do the outline first, staying ahead of my line with the icing. Basically how they tell you when you're riding a bike or driving a car, not to stare right in front of yourself, but to look at where you're going. That's kind of what I'm talking about. I'm trying here, guys. I'm trying to be as helpful as I can. So I try to stay ahead of my line of icing. And then I go in and I squeeze a little bit more, a little bit harder, and fill in the cookie roughly. You can see I'm not hitting every little spot because I go in with one of those picks, and using circular motions, I run it all together. Now, there's different ways that you can do this. I feel like everyone has a different method. I follow a lot of cookie decorators just because I think they do a phenomenal job. But I wanted to show you a real clip of what it looks like in time, because sometimes you see those things on social media and it looks like it should take 3 seconds to ice a cookie when it takes a lot of time. Even the people uploading the fast forwarded clips of cookie decorating are doing that because each cookie does take a lengthy amount of time. And I just keep repeating this process. I do also test my bag a little bit before I pipe each cookie, just to make sure that it's coming out the way I want to and there's no hardened icing at the end of it. And you can see some of these outlines are inconsistent. Sometimes I go over spots. Sometimes it doesn't look as good as the cookie sitting next to it. This is all very normal. You know, I'm an amateur at these cookies. I wanted to zoom in and show you guys up close what it looks like. And I believe I struggled quite a bit with this cookie, if I remember correctly. So I didn't like that outline, so I was going over it again, not to necessarily make a new outline, but to give myself more icing with it, to maybe manipulate it with that pick. And yeah, this one I struggled with a lot, but I'm just doing my best here. And that's something to remember, especially if you're starting out with these cookies. The very first ones I made were, you know, okay, and they looked all right and maybe weren't up to my standards, but my kids loved those first cookies as much as they loved these ones, you know, and as much as I know they'll love the ones in 10 years. If anyone's going to criticize you on your sugar cookie making skills, I would highly recommend removing them from your life, because, you know, it's not my profession, it's not my hobby, it's just something I do occasionally for holidays and birthdays and stuff that my family looks forward to. So I wanted to share it with you guys. I'm just a regular mom, just like you, and this is what I've learned from the past 2 years of making them myself, thanks to the panorama that we're in. Because I used to get these made by a bakery, but the bakery shut down during one of my daughter's birthdays, and this is how it all started. This is why I started making them myself, and now my whole family looks forward to it. So you saw me tapping it. You can also shake it with the pick. Everyone has a different way, but that's what I like to do. I find just giving a nice little love tap helps a lot. And we're on to the cupcakes. So here's the cupcakes all finished. I got this 4-pack of little containers from Walmart. I'll link them if I can find them. This helps a lot when I'm chilling them in my fridge. So I don't chill them before. They've been just sitting in an airtight container all night. And I don't do these until the day of the party. And I'm using the same bags, which again, I would not recommend. Same covered bowl. Now this icing does not set up nearly as fast as royal icing does, but still not a bad idea. I have my handy dandy hand mixer. And just like I said earlier, I use Wilton tips. So for this cupcake, I used a 2A for the white and a 233 for the grass or the moss, whatever you want to call it. And when it comes to this icing recipe that I'm going to show you for the cupcakes, I need you guys to know how top tier it is. I have fought with buttercream and other kinds before, and nothing has ever came out as good as this recipe. And these are just some dino eggs that I fished out of my kids' oatmeal because I needed dino eggs for the cupcakes and I couldn't find any online. So this recipe is actually my friend Megan's. It's her grandmother's recipe. She shared it with me on Instagram after several birthday parties being really unhappy with the recipes I was using. So all the kudos to her and her grandmother for allowing me to use it and share it with you guys. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So you just cream together the extracts, the cream cheese, and the granulated sugar until it looks like this. And that's when you add in the heavy whipping cream. So it's going to look really soupy at first. That's what I wanted to show you. It almost looks like pancake mix or something. Keep going. Just like with the royal icing, it sets up the more you mix it together. So I'm just mixing and scraping the sides. You can see here it gets a little bit thicker in consistency, but not quite where I like it. But here is where I like it. You can see mine's a tiny bit lumpy. That's because my cream cheese wasn't entirely softened. The other times where it's sat out a considerable amount and it's really soft, it's been like butter smooth. So nice. So the lumpiness is all on me, not on Megan's recipe. So, you know, because I'm just an overly prepared baker. This is me filling up the icing bags just like I did with the royal icing, except these have a tip in the bottom of them. So after I fill up this white one, which is the majority of the icing that I used, I am going to show you how I put the tips into a piping bag. So what I do is I take the tip, I take the tip and I push it down into the bag, and I try to make a mark on where it wants to come out at. That way I can see it, and then I just cut, and then I'm able to push the tip where it belongs. So pretty easy peasy. Again, another Duncan hack. Thank you, Duncan. And here I had mixed up some of that green for the moss, and I am putting that into the bag as well. So when it comes to the cupcakes, I use a method of inward to outward. The first few cupcakes are always rough. I also try to test it on like a paper towel or something to get my technique fresh in my mind. And then the moss was literally just a free-for-all. I had no idea what I wanted or what I was looking for, what I was doing. I was trying a little bit of everything, honestly. Obviously, each time I make these cupcakes, it's something different, a different themed party or an occasion or whatever. So each time I make these, it's going to be different. I'm just sharing with you how I made these particular ones, but the recipe always stays the same, and how I add food coloring in and stuff like that stays the same. And when I'm done with the icing itself, I cover them up, I refrigerate them, and then right before the party is when I will put any sprinkles or the dinosaur eggs or stuff like that on, because the oils from the cream cheese can rub the color from those sprinkles or whatever onto the cupcake itself. So here's a look at all of them finished. I was really happy with how things came out, especially the Stegosaurus cookie and the cupcakes in general. If you guys stuck around for the entire thing, thank you so much. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you have any questions, leave them down in the comments below. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. And as always, thanks for watching.